Hi, Mikayla. Let's kick off with, would you explain to our readers what life coaching is all about?
Coaching is an interesting question and statement within itself. So I've studied cognitive behavioral therapy as well as NLP and kinesiology, etc. And what I found with coaching is it's a lot of talk therapy. So talk therapy can be good, but what I also like about it as well is using other tools to make sure you're helping the person, not just following a strict set of rules. So what I like about it is to actually give them tools that they can use to make it practical, to make it easier. And so they already come to you, when someone's come to you, they've already got experiences, they've already got beliefs, they've already got, the life that they've lived before they've got to that point. And just talking through a problem just reaffirms more sort of the problem, if that sort of makes sense.
Oh,
So
it
it's
does.
important. Yeah. So it's important to, yes, talk about it, but in any situation, there's always a number of viewpoints. And so that's the viewpoint that they've remembered or what they've taken from the experience. So I also think it's really important to narrow down exactly what the person's trying to get from the session, or what help they're trying to get for a start. And sometimes I find that they just want to be reassured that they did the right thing in this situation. But it's more about sort of giving them more tools that they can take forward, as I said. So, and tailoring it to what they need at the time. So I will discuss later on, but one of my terms is, sort of turning chaos into calm. So it depends what state they're in. You can't get calm until you know what your chaos is for, and as in, the importance is to not overwhelm them, I guess, which is what I'm trying to summarize, is throwing too many tools at them also isn't helpful at the time. You need to give little bite-sized bits on what do they need at the time during that session.
I imagine the first one or two sessions are more like a therapy session, if anything, because one, you're trying to diagnose the real issue, because I imagine a lot of the first things that come out of people's mouths with you are symptoms rather than the root cause of what the problem is. So you'll kind of have to wear a therapy hat in a way. And then the life guide inside you kind of comes out, and you begin that coaching kind of and the tools and techniques as you go through each of the elements, I suppose, of what needs to be resolved or what needs to be initiated.
Well, exactly. And interestingly enough, what you just said is, I don't know if people want to face the root cause straight away either. So it's
I doubt ever for some people.
Well, that's exactly, and that's true. So, so sometimes, it's really interesting because you've got to delve past the surface. You're absolutely right, and it can be quite confronting. So you're right. This first few is just really, what's the vibe? What are you getting from this person? What's the energy? Are they feeling comfortable that they want to discuss it with you? Are they actually listening to what you've got to say? And if they're not, do you need to rephrase it? Do I need to slow my speech down? Do I need to match? So it's very much. What is the person in front of me presenting, and how do I want to present to them? And it's not just the present, you're right, it's all the other bits that go with it. It's the energy that goes with it. It's the speed of talking. Oh,
phone's gone.
See, I talk with my hands, and I moved my
the kinetic energy is at play.
So
I said I wanted a more interactive experience for our readers, and there you go.
I talk with my hands, so there we go. Sorry, now I've lost my train of thought.
I think you actually summed it up quite nicely, to be honest. So do you find that the people that are drawn to you are predominantly women, or do you have a good mix between male and female?
Interestingly, I've had quite a mix, probably a bit more females than males, but we do approach things differently. males and females, but at the same time, we've all got the same issues. It just depends how we deal with them. So we can get emotional about it. Other people just shut down about it. And I don't find it's just a male or female thing. Some people they just deal with it based on what experiences they've had to get to that point. So if they're used to always shutting down and not dealing with it, then they internalize the emotions and and don't deal with it. And other people, you're right, you can tell straight away. It's in their face, that they're in tears, they're prepared to deal with it more on a different emotional level. And so I think that's what it's more about, is how in touch are they with their emotions to deal with it. So males versus females, I find the females probably open up quicker. Whether it's just because I'm a female and that's how they are approaching it. At the end of the day, we all have things thrown at us, and it's how we deal with them, which is life. We all have the same issues, which is connecting head to heart, getting that emotional, getting through the day. Sometimes some people have the longer term goals than shorter ones. Some have got a lot more baggage from their past to deal with. And yep, I definitely have a mix.
Yeah. Well, I was imagining that coaching men and women would be different due to not only our biology but also the societal roles. And there's that whole men are more, have to suck it up and continue on. Or although I wouldn't say that's true of the current crop of younger men. I think, to be honest, it's the first generation of men I've not been attracted to. Because if I'm honest, they all seem to be very I don't know, not. I suppose it's a double-edged sword, really, isn't it? I've always been attracted to men who are real men, like are very strong figures, very in control, got their life together, their career going, and are prepared to support a family and things like that. Whereas I think the current crop of males have been, I don't know what happened to them, to be honest. There's not that many out there that I can see would want to be in that type of lifestyle anymore. So maybe you'll be able to answer that.
But I think roles have changed, and I think people are a bit confused. You were right; it was very black and white years and years ago. The man worked, the woman stayed home, looked after the kids. And I'm generalizing here, but that was, and you knew what your role was. And then things changed. Then you've got the stay-at-home dads, and then the mum, females went out to work a lot more. And now this generation, everyone's sort of equal, but do they know where their role is? And I don't know if it's that set anymore, and everyone's got to try and figure it out, which isn't such a bad thing, but I think it was instilled when you were growing up that was going to be your role, that now it isn't so much. And you can do anything you want to do, whereas, before you got a good job, you got a career, and that was the job you're going to have for 30 years. That's just not even on their radar, the teenagers anymore. Like, what do you mean I have to stay in the same job for a certain amount of time?
Have you been hitting that with well, what kind of typical things are you hitting then? Issues, and like I imagine with women it's pretty much stayed the same. Yeah, and being a woman too, you'd obviously have gone through quite a few of the same issues. But what kind of issues are you hitting in younger males when they're coming to you that you're helping them kind of solve or initiate?
I have to admit, just at the moment, it's certainly been a lot more female and teenagers, or sort of in that early sort of 20s. So I'm getting it from their point of view, and um, even down to sex and who's responsible for contraceptive, or it's even sex has just changed. If I can even touch on that subject, and it's the role is quite different. The woman has to take responsibility. The men, do they care as much? I mean, they care about that, but as far as taking the responsibility of contraceptive, they're like, she'll be right. I think a lot of them have that attitude, she'll be right. Whereas I know when I was growing up, it was drilled into you. You had to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Not every sexual disease you got was going to be cured by, taking medication and tablet,
Yeah.
it's fine. There's just a whole different approach to it. We got to know people before you had sex. So that was the dating. Now
Yeah.
it's you have sex before get to know the person.
I don't understand that. I mean, I think that's just lack of information and not being told that having a connection to a person first improves the latter, and
Well, and that's the difference between potentially sex as versus to making love, or and so I wonder if we're delving off topics here, but
yeah, we
basically
are a
that's
little
right.
bit, but it's a fascinating time to be doing any type of therapy in,
They
in our culture.
And that's it, because that connection is there. When we met someone and decided you wanted to go on a date with them, you had that connection with them. You had, whether you realized it or not, I mean, that it was that energy, call it subtle energy, whatever it was, that connection you had with someone. Now I think it's a whole different story, because you see a photo and is the connection actually there, and then they try and build the connection. Whereas
Yeah,
sometimes you just want to be with someone or not be with it. There's a vibe you get off them, and you're right, it's the energy you get from them and the energy that you put out. um and you
yeah.
just don't get that looking at a photo on the screen.
No, well, I just don't. I've never understood how, even when I was dating in my early 20s, I didn't understand. I had a girlfriend. We used to call her. It was kind of cruel now. 101, because that's how many men we thought she'd been with. You know, that was her actual nickname. It was awful, awful
Did
name.
she know that?
No, of course not. Of course not. I used to feel really bad. I never used to call her it, but that was the general name that was used by others in our group, and everyone would know it was her. And it was like, oh God.
Mm-mm.
And but I personally didn't buy it. I didn't like that. I mean, I just thought she was unlucky.
Mm.
She just seemed to have a bad streak that went on for about a 5-year period, and that's how she got the nickname.
Mm.
But she just went for the same type again and again and again. And a lot of women are guilty of that. They just they have a type and they go for it, but they don't realize it's not a particularly compatible type with themselves until they start talking. And but no, I know when I was going through that, like, I grew up Catholic too, and I think having a religious base
Mm.
also drums into you the connection. So it's really, I found that all that sort of thing came from my religion that I was raised in, and rather than the family, to be honest. The family confirmed it, with subtle things, but it was being drummed into you at Sunday school and things like that, and religious class, that you need to have that connection before you actually touch somebody, because it doesn't mean anything if you don't have a connection to the person. It's just like the nuns used to say, well, that's a prostitute, isn't it? Like, I love nuns. you know they literally would say, well, if you're just having sex with people, you might as well charge money for it. If you're not going, oh, seriously, I actually had a nun say that to me. It was just classic. I won't say the school I went to, but
No,
yeah.
no, don't.
There were some doozies. There was some absolute, like, stereotypical nuns there, and got whacked over my knuckles a few times with the ruler. So even got
Oh yeah,
made.
I roll on the back of the hand too. Yeah, not
Yeah.
allowed to do that anymore.
Oh God, no. Explains why so many people are the way they are, though, I think. There's not enough discipline early in life. I mean, I was never an advocate for being caned or anything like that. And I grew up in England, and in England, caning was still around in the 70s, 80s when I went through the school system. Um, so I've never been an advocate for that, but I think a slap on the bottom of a child to stop them from doing something dangerous to hurt themselves, like grabbing a pot off a stove or things like that. I think those are, well, they're well-meaning kind of ways of, because I don't know about you. You've had kids, Mikayla?
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
teenagers.
How effective has it been for you? One smack, a one well-placed smack to stop a child from grabbing something hot, to just asking them nicely. How many times has asking a child nicely ever resulted in an instant reaction for them stopping?
Well, here's an actual example though. So my kids are 21 months apart. So my eldest one was sort of 21 months, 22 months, let's call her that, and the
Mm-hmm.
baby was in the capsule that I was sticking into the car. And I saw what was happening, if you know what I mean, as I was busy sticking the capsule in the car, trying to look after the 2-year-old, under 2-year-old, and she started to walk around the car to get to her
Oh,
side. So she was
yeah.
technically doing the right thing because she was going to get into her side of the car. I put the capsule down, and I didn't mean to punish her. It was just my reaction also was she got to the back of the car and I went up to her and I just put my hand on her shoulder to stop her. And I went, stop. Of course, it frightened the life out of her.
Mm.
And she said, what? And I said, see that car? Because there was a car coming past. We were in a car park. So, I mean, I wasn't putting her in any situation that it wasn't of, but that
Yeah.
was dangerous. And as the car was sort of going past, I said, do you see that car? And she said, well, yes. I said, it can't see you. And she
Mm.
went, what do you mean? And I said, all right, mummy's busy and I was trying to do this. And 1 minute you were right beside me. And the next minute, I know you were just trying to do the right thing to go around the other side. But I scared the bejesus out of her, but she'd scared me. And I didn't have to smack her. I didn't have to do anything like that because that fright was enough for her to go, well,
Mm.
okay, I can see that you're busy. And she never just took off from me again. So there are ways of doing it. As you said, I just don't want to go down the whole smacking and
No,
whether it's
no.
good or bad thing, because that's just a whole different
Oh, no.
conversation.
Well,
But
yeah.
there are ways of doing it, and it wasn't intentional that I did it, but I gave her just enough of a scare for her to go, wow, this is actually really serious. And as
I
I said,
suppose, I
she
suppose,
didn't.
I suppose it also depends on the child. You're quite a mild-mannered person, and you know what I mean? And I
Mm,
imagine your children are also quite similar to you. I have friends with children that, do you know that character in the cartoons, Ginger Megs? Or
mm,
like absolute tearaway children, like don't stop moving, don't,
mm.
pretty much a husband. Uh, they used to let the grandparents look after the kids to get a break from them, and the
Yeah.
grandparents used to actually have one of those dog chains to keep the child in the vicinity when they went to it was that bad, we just take
Mm,
whatever. So I think it really depends on the child. Like, I
mm,
agree with, but I think with some kids they just don't listen. They just do not
mm,
take on board what's being said to them, and it's not an intelligence thing. I think it's just a hyperactive thing, to be honest. And my first daughter, Courtney, I probably smacked her 3 or 4 times at critical moments, but my
mm,
second, never,
mm.
because she was so docile compared to Courtney. In fact, when she came, we were expecting the hurricane, but it never came. It was just like it was such a pleasure. It was like, oh, she's just staying there. I spent the first 6 months going, shouldn't she be racing around or doing something? And she'd just be there reading a book or flicking through something, or she was more of a crafty kind of child. So I think that whole smacking versus nurture really comes down to what you have as a child and their personality.
Mm.
Just like when you do your coaching, it would depend on the client in front of you, the kind of techniques you dole out. Obviously some techniques are a lot stronger than other techniques, and some people might only need a few sessions with you, whereas others are there for life. Well, hopefully not, but hopefully not.
Um,
So,
but
mhm.
that's interesting what you were saying that because I think children are they don't have the quiet time that they used to have. I'm trying to phrase that in a way as well because
Yeah.
it's the same as us as adults. Even when we're scrolling through social media, our attention span is not what it used to be, and we would be able to sit and read you, or you would read an article even if it was on social media. Now you scroll as quickly as you can, so children are scrolling quickly from an early age, so their brain is slightly wired differently to for that attention. um, Even down to, which is just a personal opinion, but even when they're in the supermarket, I would make my children look around, help me get things off the shelf,
Yeah.
but I would steer them into, this is what we need to get, and they would help me. Whereas now it's much easier just to give them an iPad or a
Okay.
phone and sit there for half an hour.
Mhm.
But what you're missing is that human interaction. You're missing the eye contact. You're missing a
Missing the
lot of
like,
things.
you're missing the teaching element of the interaction between the parent and the child as well.
Yeah.
My kids never had weren't even allowed a phone until they hit high school in year
Mm,
8. And
yeah.
but I'll tell you what, other parents used to bludgeon me with that for years. Like my both girls started at the private school in year 4 for my youngest, and from year 4 to year 8, she didn't have a phone because I dropped her off and picked her up every day. There was no
Yes.
safety issue. She was either with me or she was inside the school environment, so she didn't need a phone. But seriously, the parents that I associated with during those few years, they were awful to me. They said, "Oh, I can't believe you won't give a kid this." And I'd also never been a big TV thing. I'd
Mm,
get the kids to do things with games or play or put on a show, or you know what I mean, or
mm,
something a bit more creative. And you can actually tell the difference now between my kids, I think, and some of their friends when they come over. Not an again, it's not an intelligence thing. It's more of a sociable. I can't tell you how many times other parents said to me, "I can't believe your kids talk to me and they look me in the eye." How bad is that, Mikayla? That's
but but
socializing, being able to talk.
exactly.
Yeah.
And another story is my daughter. I taught her. Well, you teach one child, and they teach the other children. So I did teach both, but as in you put the effort into one to teach them baby sign language. And I remember spending a couple of months. So she was 9 months until about 11 months before I saw any sort of feedback. But and so I was doing all the signs, and you can see I talk with my hands, so it was easy for me to kind of do, but I had to learn
Mhm.
them. And I remember when we were in the supermarket, she was sitting in the pram, and she was telling me about a hat, and that's the symbol for hat. And we were in the supermarket, and of course I acknowledged what she was saying by saying, yes, that's hat, and yes, we need a hat when we go outside. But I couldn't see a hat in the shop. And I was like, what's she talking about nonetheless? So I've still got to piece together what she was saying. And as
Mhm.
sure as anything, we went to the next aisle and there was a gentleman wearing a hat in the supermarket. And
Mhm.
so she was letting me know. So you're right, that communication was there before she could even talk.
Mhm.
But she was observing. So she was observing. I look back now and I go, yes, that's what some of these kids are potentially missing out on. She was observing. She had a communication with me. She was looking, and
Yeah.
she was just saying, I've seen him wearing a hat. I was so overwhelmed going, oh my God, my daughter just told me you're wearing a hat. He must have been like going,
She's
great.
so advanced. I, I don't know how many times I I used to, I don't know if it's just me, but I seem to always attract what I call martyr mothers, M&Ms I call them. And they're always so super competitive. I don't know if you've hit this, but you go off to it. Yeah, you have. I can't believe you haven't, to be honest, because they're
Mother's group for a start.
yeah. I've never really been good at those groups. I always, because I'm a bit odd, and I think you are too, actually, Michaela.
What?
Yeah.
Unique.
Yeah. I've never really fitted that mode. So I'd want to talk about weird things like the paranormal, and ufology, and I just read this article on this, and isn't that fascinating? And they'd all be wanting to talk about yeah, or baby stuff, I suppose. And
You
you know
have to pick who you're going to discuss certain things with. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So, Michaela, why did you decide to become a life guide? Was there an incident or a particular person that influenced your decision?
I decided, I think, because I'd faced lots of challenges myself. I mean, I know everybody does, but I'd faced quite a few, and I decided to view things slightly differently. So, the reason some people come to me, but the reason I also decided to do this was I said to myself, is what I'm doing working?
Mm.
And I wasn't feeling happy, fulfilled, all those sorts of things. And I thought, so it's not working. So therefore, if it's not, is it everyone else's problem, or is it mine? And so if it's mine, then what do I need to do differently about it? One of the key things for me in particular was I was driving home one day, and the kids were in the back. They were young. They were strapped into their car seats. And I pulled into the driveway, and I was anywhere but present. I was deciding what to cook for dinner. I was trying to keep them calm because they were at each other. It was the end of the day, and I was thinking, I've just got to get this washing on. I've got to, the usual story, anything but being present. And I just wanted to get in the house so I could get things done. And as I was getting the bags out of the back of the car, something sort of happened, and one kid distracted me. And like I said, it's not their fault. It was just sort of what happened. And I went to shut the boot of a four-wheel drive, and I stood to the side of it, which I never normally do. And I shut the boot very hard into the side of my head. And I decided to swear and go, wow. What it did for me, though, is I went, why did I do that? And so it started me with those real questions of, why did I do that? Why was I standing to the side of it? What caused me to do that? Anyway, it took me to the ground, and I phoned my husband and I said, come home from work immediately. And he said, are you all right? And I said, no, because I've never called you in the 2 years that, I've been home with the kids. And I'm saying, or about 4 years, I think it was. And I said, no, come home immediately. And by the time he came home, I'd had the kids done. We touched on it before. I always thought TV was such a good babysitter that it should only be used occasionally because it was such a good babysitter. So I didn't sit them in front of TV all the time. Well, of course, tonight was the perfect night because they were going, Mum's letting us watch TV. So they were watching TV, and I was just about passed out on the couch because that's how I'd hit my head. So that was like a key moment to me when I thought, what am I doing? Why am I creating all this chaos? What was up? And one of the other key things that came out from it was I read the book Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now.
I guess I love that.
Yeah, well, I know some people who just couldn't get into the book, didn't get it. Well, at the time was right for me. And I thought, what is this present moment? Why is it called a gift? I want to achieve things in the future, so we should always be planning about the future. And if you're not analyzing the past, then you're not learning from it. And so I was in this real sort of not enjoying the present moment. And it sounds so simple, but it's one of the hardest things which is what I teach people.
People miss the moments all the time.
Correct.
What I do now is when I entertain or anything like that, I hire people now to do a lot of that stuff so I can actually enjoy the moment. Whereas when I was younger, I'd get to an end of an evening and I just go, but I didn't get to talk to anyone, or I didn't do this, and I didn't do that because I was too busy with all the fluff, the preparation, and the cleanup, and missed the actual event. And it's amazing.
And you're right. And so if I've got some friends coming over, I will prepare beforehand. So exactly, it's there. Everyone help themselves or whatever it is. Like I'll make it like lasagna or something. Therefore, it's done. It's in there. It's done. I serve it. We're all good to go. For exactly that reason, or else you end up running backwards and forwards, and you miss the moment. And I didn't want to miss the moment of the kids growing up, but as well as I was missing my moment. I was missing. I was anywhere but present. And it took me to hit me on the head. I mean, some people have, life-changing experiences, near-to-death experiences before that happened. And that's when I also realized I had a moment. What did I need to learn from it? Because if I wasn't going to learn from that, I was probably going to do something else. So it was just more, I felt there was a message. What was the message? What can I learn from this? And I decided to learn from it. And
that book by Eckhart Tolle I've actually got it as an audio book. The first time I listened to it, I don't think people realize he's got quite a dry sense of humor. Do they? He cracks a few funnies, not many. It's still very, holistic and all about the moment, being in the moment. From a spiritual perspective, I see him as. compared to others who see mindfulness more as a clinical, secular. But I've done a couple of mindfulness courses thinking I'd review them, and I've actually ended up just walking out of them because they haven't had that spiritual element linked to them. I'll tell you about one. You'll love this, Mikayla. It was actually associated with my daughter's school, which is a religious school, but because of the complaints for so many people, this only was 2 years ago, they wanted it run in a secular way. And the only reason I actually signed up to do the course and agreed to do it was because I thought there would be a spiritual element to it. But anyway, we sat down there. We spent 30 minutes sucking a sultana and concentrating on the sultana.
Was it exciting?
No. And then the 2 times I've been involved in mindfulness, I've got to let me share. I've got to purge this because you're the perfect person to purge it too. The 2 times I've done these mindfulness things, I've ended up just not going back to the second or the third class because I thought, oh, this load of crap, basically. But both times, people have had breakdowns when they've been in the moment, when they've actually had to look at themselves. So imagine, So imagine this, like one was a school environment. There's probably about 20 people in the group, and there's this one guy. But like we're answering questions and that, which the leader of the group, I don't know I think he was. I don't know if he was a therapist or I don't think he was clinically trained, but he was maybe a psychoanalyst or something, a psychologist, and not a psychiatrist. Though, it was just psychology, and basically, he'd ask questions, and 99% of the group, and this has happened twice to me. There was a wonderful resort up at Tweed Heads called Gwingana, and I went up there for a weekend with a few girlfriends, and we did some dance therapy and a few things up there, which was a lot of fun. And after we did the dance therapy, we sat down and we sat in a circle and we passed around and this rock, and when you had the rock that you had to give a truth or something out. So in that environment and in this school therapy mindfulness kind of environment, this happened. One person out of a group of 20 had a major breakdown, and like literally one was male, one was female, and both of these people just completely destroyed the environment. But I thought, if I'd been the person running it, I probably would have been a bit peeved because the intention of the day was an uplifting one. And in less than 10 seconds, these people, it had been great for them, but everybody left. The other 19 people left feeling like, oh, okay, that probably wasn't, we didn't get much out of what we're actually here to do. But obviously, when people are in the moment and have to face themselves, which is what mindfulness is all about, they have cathartic moments. Is that normal? Because that's happened twice now.
My feel when you were telling me that story is it's funny how people sabotage things to make things about themselves.
Oh,
was
yeah.
just the
that
view
was
I got just then.
That was my initial feeling with the woman. With the guy, I think he was just a bit clueless and he didn't actually know what he was getting into, and he was looking for another. And he started getting a bit of sympathy from the women in the group. There was more women in there than men. And I think he was playing on it a bit. So I think he had ulterior motives, actually, Mikayla, in that particular session. But no, I definitely thought the first thought that came to my mind was drama queen, and everyone else was falling for it. And I'm sitting there because I'm a little bit more analytical on these things. Being an editor, you have to be a bit of a fence sitter. You know, you sit between the two worlds, and I do a lot of observation and rarely commit verbally. But yeah, in this case, I did actually have that take with her, not with him. I just thought he was clueless, to be honest. Completely clueless, and saw an opportunity to score a date, I think. So
But I don't know if people really quite understand what the word mindful means, and is there the connotations that it's just a Buddhist thing, or like do you have to do it all the time, and is it just a buzzword that's been around for a while? I do wonder. That being said, I went to a dinner the other night, and it was a talk on mindfulness.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I just think the timing of it was a bit wrong, because it was during a meal. So the meal arrived, so we were starting to eat while she was talking. Now, I'm into the subject, but I still didn't get her. She
Oh,
didn't build that connection. And I
mm,
was going, I understand what you're saying, but you've lost everybody in the room here. And one, they're focusing on their meal. And a few bites away from actually finishing the meal, you could see it, not everyone was done. She's, now we're going to do an exercise. So put your knives and forks down. And you could sort of see everyone going, really? So it was a shame, as I said,
yeah.
because I think and it was unfortunate because of that's just the time she had, it was squeezed in. So I don't think she even got the point across. And as I said, I think it's a real shame, because there's a lot to be learned from it. But if people aren't in the frame of mind to go, why do I have to be conscious of washing my hands? I'm washing my hands. Don't tell me I have to do it mindfully. Of course, I'm washing my hands. So it depends how it's described to them as why you're doing it for a
Mm.
start and what it's even about. Um, I'm washing my hands because I've got dinner to cook. So I'm thinking about that because I'm halfway through cooking it, and I've got to wash because I've cooked chicken or something before I do all of that. And what now? I'm going to be mindful about it too, So, um, whereas you can grasp that, and that's why I think some of this stuff seems, and especially like Eckhart Tolle at the present moment, you think that sounds too simple to understand what you're quite getting at, and yet it actually is quite that
It's,
simple.
that's where I
Um,
take my mindfulness from. That's why when they took the more spiritual side out of it for this school one, I was like very dubious about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's about the whole lot. It isn't just
Yeah.
about here being present, and mind the gap and all that sort of stuff. And people are like, well, what does mind the gap mean? Well, because you're thinking about your past and the future, and the gap is right now, sort of thing. And people are like going, what? What do you mean? I was like, I didn't know if
And
it was
they've
the
never
way
been to the London Underground, so.
and I went straight there when she said that too. But that was it. So it was all how it was described as well. But I think it comes down to that basic fundamental of exactly if people actually, well, people don't do it, but looked into themselves, as in, like, as you said with that guy before, has he ever actually had that moment where he's gone, um, what am I? What is this? What is right now? And yeah, you can get a bit overwhelmed with that if you've never done that work before.
Well, as I said, with her, it was just like it was all very uplifting. To be honest, like it was the rock. This was the group where he was in the school group, and she was in the Gwingana circle where we were passing the rock around.
Mm.
And I think I was about the sixth person, and she was next to me. Oh, that's right, she was next to me, and I'm sitting there, and everyone's giving me these evil eyes, like, "What aren't you?" I had a friend across the group, directly across the group, and when she started like having her breakdown, my friend was giving me the like, give her a hug, Sharon eyes, and I'm giving her back. I don't think so, you
No,
know.
not going there.
And I'm just kind of like looking, and I've got my other friend over here looking at me like going, "Come on, give her up." And I'm thinking, why me? And I'm like going, "You're near her. You're sitting near her too." So it was quite funny from that perspective because, everyone's bullying me too. In the end, I did give her a hug, and then she just clung on me. It was like, it was like ivy. So, but anyway. I, I'm not very good with people I don't know touching me, so that to
Mm.
me is a bit like, okay, not really too much. My friends are pissing themselves laughing while this was all happening, of course, because they know that about me. But
I thought they were going to say, quick, grab the rock from her. Is that like the wooden spoon? You
oh
can only talk when
well,
you've got the
yeah,
rock.
exactly. What was happening? I was like the sixth person in the group, and we were all supposed to say something, and it was something positive about the present moment. That was what it was. And so the
Mm.
therapist had the rock to start with, and she said, I am just so amazed at the warmth on my body's feeling. I can feel the warmth on my skin at this moment. Isn't it a glorious day? And she passed it over. And the next lady said, oh my, I can actually feel for the first time in years the muscles in the back of my leg from all the dancing we've just done. And I'm really, really, it's a lovely feeling. I'm going to do more dancing, and she passed it off. So we had like six and got to me, and I'm thinking, oh God, I've got bullshit here, because,
Yeah,
I'd
something
rather
positive, come on.
go on. Although I was having a good time. So basically, I just said something about I just think it's wonderful. I could be here with my two friends. We don't get to be together that often, but we've got this weekend together, and it's nice. We probably haven't danced like we just did since our uni days. And so up until her, the lady next to me, it had all been like everyone was on a high. It was getting bigger, and the high was getting higher. And then she just got the rock, stared at it, and then just exploded in tears. And then she told us all how she'd been abused by her. And then she came up with the abuse stories, and completely out of So that's why I kind of thought also she wasn't on topic with what was being said, and I think she was just looking for attention. So. But she was definitely in the moment, though. I mean, she was right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
But her topic was about the past, though.
It was. You're right. So she was. Yeah, she
So
was
the
dwelling.
topic's about the past. Yeah,
Yeah.
so she's dwelling on the past. And the other thing, which we've discussed on previous, not in this podcast, but previous with the radio show, was energy vampires. So I
Yeah.
just wonder whether, that's all sort of it's about me, but people don't realize they're doing it. So if the energy was so great, then I want that positive energy. So I'm going to suck it all
It was
out.
great. Even me, who's fence sitter, me was. We just danced for about half an hour like idiots around this wonderful space, and then we sat down and did this. So yeah, the energy was the energy, and it went from like here to the floor instantly with her.
Yes. Yeah, sucked
And
it out.
yeah, and then it was at the point where you just couldn't leave, and like as I said, you just hung on me. It was awful. It was, and
But
I'm
she's now grabbing your energy too.
oh yeah, physically grabbing it. See, at that
Yeah.
point in my life, I didn't understand about energy vampires, and I'd always had an aversion to people touching me, and I realized what that was now, and I still don't, unless I really know them well. I don't let people touch me, and definitely not my crystals anyway. Very.
Funny that I'm holding when you were talking about rocks before.
No one touches my crystals. That's like the ultimate faux pas, isn't it? For anyone holistic. If somebody goes to reach and touch a crystal, they're really not into metaphysical stuff, because everybody knows you don't touch somebody else's crystals unless it's an offered thing.
Yeah, but it's also that they don't understand what they do. So whether you think they do anything or not, I like to take the view, but what if? And if you don't know, then are you just going to rule it out that, oh, there's nothing in it because it's just solid, it's just a rock? Or I take the view, well, what if there is something in it and you can get energy healing from it? And I go, how do I feel with that? So it's those questions to ask yourself, what if? And the same go match the car thing. Why did I do that? And it's those questions that open you up to, maybe there's something in this. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. But am I going to put my judgment on it, or am I going to be open to it?
Well, that's kind of where the therapist went with that group, and the lady in the end. She basically said, well, I think this has been cathartic for you, and I think you probably need to go sit by yourself and contemplate this. It was an obvious, like, leave the group. Leave the group. And, oh, that was fun. Anyway, but I just thought it was interesting that both of them were more mindfulness kind of exercises, and both resulted in two pretty much breakdowns of people and facing the truth. So yeah, you must have an interesting first couple of sessions with new people, if that's the case.
Well, a quote just then was, yeah, don't forget you got to sometimes have that breakdown before you have the breakthrough.
Yeah, it's I a few years back I did this actually many years back, mid-30s, I think for me it was I did the Heal Your Life books. Have you by is it Louise Hay?
Louise Hay, yeah.
And they were pivotal for me. And that was a good way of doing it. If you're not if you're not really an exhibitionist, you don't want to go out and do group therapy or do one-on-one therapy. But they were perfect for my type of personality. I think I got the books, I got the companion guide, and I just worked my way through the books. And it took about 3 months. And at the end of it, I really, really knew myself, and I had my affirmations and all that worked out. It's funny. I had a lot of friends at the time do it, and you could always tell the ones that hadn't done it properly because they would brag about the fact they did it in less than a week or they did it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Whereas, and people that did it like me, and it took months, or sometimes it may have even taken a year for someone to get through it. You know that they've actually done the work. That's been involved. So.
But I mean, it's like meditating. I mean, I learned to meditate when I was a child, and then I didn't do it for years. And I was like, what do you need that for? And then I was going, well, how come people are getting all this benefit from it? Like, can't I just sit here and meditate, as you said? Like, so can I just rush through it? Okay, a minute. Am I there? Am I there?
Yeah.
It takes the effort. It takes the work to go through. And now I love it because I can get to different levels and I can get to the calm. But you're right, to me what you just said is and learning and getting through all of that, unfortunately it's not a quick process. It's not you've got years of beliefs, even aside from that sort of basic topic. It takes a while to learn things and learn about yourself, and each experience is different. Like, you'd be different to how you were in your 20s and how you dealt with things in your 30s, how you dealt with things when you were a teenager. It's the same. You learn to go through that process. So I don't know if people want to look back and look at it though, and analyze it, or even get to know themselves.
No, it's funny. I had a flatmate years and years ago, and I just got the most amazing tape from the States. A friend had sent me over. It was a Hollywood actress who I can't remember her name. She's very famous, but she went on a spiritual journey, and there was actually a movie made about her journey to spirituality. God, you know the name, and
Not
you know the
not Eat,
tape.
Love, Pray.
No, no, no. It was way before that. She was a Hollywood
Yeah.
actress. She was very famous. Then had a famous. She married a famous man. Got divorced from him, and then she had a famous daughter. It'll come back. It'll come back to me, and basically she did this. She went into the meditation side of things, and she had some spiritual enlightened experiences, and they were documented in a movie, and she put out a series of tapes, and at the very beginning of it she teaches you how to breathe. And God, this woman could hold a breath. I mean, seriously. And you listen to the tape and she's counting, literally. She wants you to hold your breath. You practice the breath to start the meditation, for like 10 seconds. And I remember sitting down. I've been doing it for a while because for about a year at that stage. And then my flatmate said, "Oh, I want my new boyfriend, who's now a husband, to kind of chill out a bit. So would you mind if he joined us tonight during the meditation?" Because she started doing it with me. She loved it too. So we sat down and did it with him. And he didn't last past the second breath. So he basically went, "Oh, I can't do this shit," and got up and, and took off. And when you were
Can't
just,
want to or don't want to.
he wasn't fun, I think. We were early 20s then, and yeah, it just wasn't. But it's like that with everything. I mean, you've got to be ready to experience something. Like if I'd heard Eckhart Tolle in my 20s, I probably wouldn't have been ready for it. But
No.
it was perfect in my late 30s, early 40s. He's a lot of the concepts a lot of the stuff I read now, I probably wouldn't have got through the first page either. But now,
Exactly.
you've got to have that breadth of understanding and your knowledge in certain areas. So, but anyway.